A poor little girl stepped onto an old subway train in the heart of Chicago and saw a strange man sitting frozen in the corner of the carriage. His eyes read so devastated that he was breaking down in tears as if he had lost his entire world. Then the little girl softly began to sing the song her mother had taught her, to chase away the sadness of that stranger. But she had no idea. The man sitting there in tears was Dominic Rossi, her biological father, the man who had been missing for 7 long years and had searched for her mother and child in despair. When Dominic quietly followed the little girl back to a crumbling house at the end of the poorest alley in the south side, the door slowly opened, and the sight of a woman lying feverish on a torn sofa made him freeze in shock. Grace, the ex-wife he thought he had lost forever, was right there in front of him, 7 years apart, a daughter who had never known her father, a mother destroyed by poverty, and outside, old enemies had already found their trail. What tore this family apart for all those years? Will Dominic save his wife and daughter? Or will the cruel past bury them all once again? Stay until the end of the video, and don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to reflect on the quiet power of kindness, especially when no one else chooses to show it. Share your thoughts in the comments and tell us where you're watching from. Which city and country are you in, and what time is it there right now? It's always amazing to see how stories like this connect people from all over the world. Is it United States, London, maybe Canada, Jamaica, South Africa, or anywhere we want to know? And tell us what you learned at the end of this video. If moments like this remind you of the beauty of humanity, please like the video and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss more powerful stories that celebrate compassion, courage, and the simple acts of kindness that can change a life. The Red Line subway car rattled through the underbelly of Chicago, its fluorescent lights flickering like dying stars against the grimy windows. Dominic Rossi sat alone in the corner seat, his broad shoulders hunched beneath a tailored black wool coat that cost more than most people in this car earned in a year. He was a fair-skinned American man in his late 30s, born and raised in the gritty neighborhoods of Chicago, now the undisputed head of a vast construction empire that masked something far darker. Power clung to him like a second skin, yet tonight it felt like chains. His knuckles were raw split from an earlier confrontation on a rain-slicked South Side street. A rival faction had tried to muscle into his territory again, 3 men with knives and sneers thinking they could intimidate the Don. Dom had ended it with cold efficiency and a few well-placed warnings, but the victory tasted like ash. What am I even fighting for anymore? The thought gnawed at him, a relentless remorse that had hollowed out his chest over the years. He had built an empire, yet every night the same ghosts returned, the wife who had vanished with their unborn child 7 years ago, the life he had chosen that drove her away, the innocence he had traded for power. Guilt clawed at his insides, sharp and unforgiving, reminding him that no amount of wealth could buy back what he had lost. The train lurched to a stop at a dimly lit station. A small figure shuffled aboard, clutching 2 heavy plastic grocery bags that threatened to tear at any moment. She could not have been more than 7 years old, Lily. A tiny girl with tangled chestnut hair and eyes too large for her pale, malnourished face. Her thin coat, patched in several places, did little to ward off the biting Chicago wind that followed her inside. She moved with a quiet resilience that belied her obvious exhaustion, her steps careful, as if every movement cost her precious energy. Lily scanned the crowded car and spotted the sad man in the fancy coat. He looked like the pictures in her mama's old storybooks, the knight who had lost his way. Mama always said that when someone looked that sad, you should sing them a song and the sadness might just float away like clouds after a storm. Lily's stomach growled, but she ignored it. She had been hungry for days. This was nothing new. "Excuse me, mister," she said in a soft, timid voice, polite as her mother had taught her. "Can I sit here?" Dom blinked, pulled from his brooding. He nodded once, shifting slightly to make room. The girl climbed up beside him, her short legs dangling. For a long moment, silence hung between them, broken only by the rumble of the tracks. "You look really sad," Lily whispered, her voice barely audible over the train's noise. "Like my mama, when she stares out the window at night. She says singing helps the sadness go away." Before Dom could respond, the little girl began to sing. Her voice was small but clear, trembling with earnestness. "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray." The familiar melody hit Dom like a freight train. It was their song, the one he used to hum to his wife's belly years ago, back when life still held promise. His throat tightened. Tears he had not shed in years burned at the corners of his eyes. This child, this fragile scrap of a girl from a world so far removed from his own, was offering him the only comfort she knew. The inner conflict raged violently within him, the powerful Mafia boss who commanded fear and respect, reduced to a man drowning in remorse by a child's innocent kindness. Lily finished the verse and looked up at him with wide, curious eyes. "Did it help, mister? You're crying. Was my singing bad?" Dom swallowed hard, his voice rough with emotion. "No, sweetheart. It was beautiful. Thank you." He noticed the grocery bags, then cheap bread, a small bottle of fever medicine, a single bruised apple. The items spoke volumes of desperation. Lily's hands were red from the cold plastic handles, her fingernails bitten short. She looked so small, so powerless against the crushing weight of poverty, that Dom could almost feel it pressing down on her. "Those bags look heavy," he said gently. "Where are you headed?" Home, Lily replied, her voice soft and guarded. "Mama's sick. I went to the store because she couldn't get up. Our house isn't far from the station. I know the way really well." The train doors opened at the next stop. Dom stood without thinking. "Let me help you carry them." "No payment needed." Lily hesitated, suspicion flickering across her young face, mixed with confusion and a spark of fear. Strangers with money and nice coats did not usually offer help in her world, but something in his eyes, deep, stormy remorse mixed with unexpected warmth, made her nod. "Okay. But only because Mama needs the medicine fast. You walk kind of slow for a grown-up, though." Dom managed a faint smile, the first in weeks. They stepped off into the biting night air of Chicago's South Side. Dilapidated buildings loomed under flickering streetlights. Wind whipped through cracked alleys, carrying the scent of damp concrete and despair. As they walked, Lily chattered softly, her words painting a heartbreaking picture. "Mama works 2 jobs, but sometimes the bosses don't pay on time. Last week the landlord said we had to leave if we didn't catch up. We've been eating mostly bread and water. Mama tries to hide it, but I hear her crying at night when she thinks I'm asleep." Each word twisted the knife deeper into Dom's chest. Here was a child enduring humiliations no one should face, sleep-deprived, thin as a rail, carrying adult burdens on tiny shoulders, while he sat atop an empire of concrete and shadows. His guilt swelled into a consuming storm. "I built walls of power to protect what I loved, and instead I lost everything. Now this little girl. She reminds me of the family I failed." A sudden tension thickened the air. 2 shadowy figures emerged from a side street, eyes locked on Dom. Rivals. Word traveled fast in the underworld. One stepped forward, voice low and threatening. "Rossi, you think you can walk these blocks like you own them? Our crew has a message for you." Dom's posture shifted instantly, protective instinct flaring as he positioned himself between the men and Lily. His voice was calm steel. "Not tonight. Walk away." The confrontation crackled with suspense. Harsh words exchanged a brief shoving match against a graffiti-covered wall. But Dom diffused it with a cold stare and a veiled warning that sent the men retreating into the darkness. No blood was spilled, yet the encounter left adrenaline surging through him. He glanced down at Lily, who had pressed close to his leg, her small body trembling with fear and confusion. "Are you okay, mister? Those men looked mean." "I'm fine," Dom assured her, though inside violent emotional conflict tore at him. The power that kept him alive had also isolated him. And now this child had walked straight into his broken world. They reached a sagging red gate in front of a crumbling 2-flat. Paint peeled from the walls like old skin. Wind whistled through broken window seals. Inside, the apartment was freezing. A single bulb cast harsh shadows over threadbare furniture, empty cupboards, and a woman lying on a worn couch, Grace, Lily's mother. She was desperately thin, her face flushed with fever, dark circles under her eyes from countless sleepless nights. Poverty had stripped her bare, malnourished, powerless, enduring one unjust blow after another. Eviction notices, unpaid wages, cold nights, huddled with her daughter for warmth. "Mama, I'm home," Lily called, softly setting the bags down. "This is Mr. Dom. He helped me carry everything." Grace stirred, her voice weak and timid as she tried to sit up. "Lily, who is this? You shouldn't bring strangers." Confusion and guarded fear clouded her eyes, followed by a wave of dizzy disorientation as she struggled against the illness. Dom knelt slowly, keeping distance to avoid alarming her. "Ma'am, I mean no harm. Your daughter sang to me on the train. Let me help get her settled. I can call a doctor." Grace's gaze met his shock, curiosity, and a flicker of something deeper warring within her. This powerful man with his expensive coat and commanding presence stood in her pitiful home. Why? The inner turmoil surged horror at her vulnerability, anxiety. overtrusting anyone, yet an overwhelming sense of being seen for the first time in years. As the night deepened, Dom made quiet arrangements. A private doctor arrived discreetly. Lily curled up beside her mother, humming fragments of the song. Dom sat in the corner chair watching over them, his heart pounding with a fierce new purpose. This child had found him in his darkness. For the first time in 7 long years, remorse felt less like a prison and more like a call to action. Later that night, as Grace's fever raged and Lily slept fitfully, Dom stepped outside into the cold Chicago wind. His phone buzzed another message from his crew about rival movements, but for once the Empire felt secondary. A single thought consumed him, intense and protective. No one will touch this family again. Not while I draw breath. Inside, Lily stirred in her sleep and whispered, "You are my sunshine." The words wrapped around Dom's shattered heart like a promise. The broken world had cracked open, letting in a small miraculous light. Later that night, the cramped Southside apartment felt even smaller under the weight of desperation. The single bulb overhead cast long, flickering shadows across the peeling walls, illuminating the threadbare couch where Grace lay shivering beneath a thin blanket that had seen too many winters. Her face burned with fever, cheeks hollow from months of malnutrition, her once bright eyes now dulled by exhaustion and endless worry. She had not eaten properly in days, her body frail and powerless against the pneumonia that gripped her lungs like icy claws. The cold wind whistled through cracks in the window frames, carrying the distant sounds of sirens and shouting from the streets below, another reminder of the unjust world that refused to show mercy to a struggling single mother. Dominic Rossi stood in the doorway, his tall, powerful frame filling the space in a way that made the tiny room seem even more pitiful. His tailored black coat and polished shoes belonged to another universe, one of gleaming skyscrapers and private security details, not this freezing hell of unpaid bills and empty cupboards. Inside his chest, remorse tore at him with fresh violence. This could have been my family. 7 years of ghosts. And now this child sings my song. The gnawing guilt he had carried since his wife's disappearance twisted sharper, fueled by the sight of Lily curled protectively beside her mother. The private doctor arrived discreetly within the hour, summoned by a quiet call from Dom's secure line. No questions asked. Money moved mountains in Chicago, and Dom had plenty of it, enough to command silence and excellence. As the physician examined, Grace Lily watched with wide, fearful eyes, her small hand clutching her mother's. "Mama, please get better," Lily whispered in her soft, timid voice, polite even in her terror. Mr. Dom brought the doctor. "He's nice. He carried the bag so I wouldn't drop the medicine." Grace stirred, her voice weak and guarded. "Lily, you should not have brought him here. Strangers. They don't help people like us." Confusion clouded her features, followed by a wave of dizziness that made her clutch the couch. She felt numb, disoriented, her mind spinning between horror at her vulnerability and a spark of desperate curiosity. Why would this wealthy, commanding man step into their nightmare? The inner conflict raged within her, fear of being powerless once more, yet a fragile, burning hope that someone might finally see their suffering. Dom kept his distance, speaking gently. "Ma'am, I mean no harm. Your daughter reminded me of something I lost a long time ago. Let me help tonight. No strings attached." Next morning, pale sunlight filtered through the dirty windows. Grace's fever had eased slightly thanks to the medicine and fluids the doctor had left, but she remained too weak to stand. Lily had barely slept, her thin frame even more fragile after another cold night. She moved around the kitchenette with quiet determination, trying to make weak tea from the last of the supplies. Dom had not left. He sat in the worn armchair through the long hours, his powerful presence a strange anchor in their chaos. When Lily's stomach growled loudly, he stepped out briefly and returned with warm, deep-dish pizza from a nearby shop known for its thick, cheesy slices. The kind families shared on special occasions, not something Lily had tasted in years. "Here, sweetheart," he said, offering her a plate. "Eat as much as you want." Lily's eyes widened with shock and overwhelming gratitude. She took a small bite, then, another, tears welling up. "It's so good, Mr. Dom. Mama always says pizza is for rich people. We never get it." Her voice was soft, polite, yet filled with the quiet dignity of a child who had endured too much humiliation. As Lily ate, she began drawing on a scrap of paper with a broken crayon, crude but heartfelt sketches of Wrigley Field, the baseball stadium she had only seen in pictures. "This is where the Cubs play. Mama says one day we'll go, but it's too expensive." The drawing carried innocent hope that pierced Dom's heart like a blade. Violent emotional conflict surged inside him. The Mafia boss who had ordered street confrontations and built an empire on calculated power now felt his remorse consume him. "I have buildings, money, men who fear me. Yet I could not protect my own blood. This little girl carries my song in her heart. Later that afternoon, while Grace rested fitfully, Dom stepped outside to make calls. The south side streets greeted him with their usual tension. Two unfamiliar men lingered near the corner eyes, tracking him, scouts from a rival faction testing his territory again. The confrontation came swiftly and unexpectedly. One stepped forward, voice low and bold. "Rossi, you're straying far from your usual towers. This block belongs to us now." Dom's jaw tightened, protective fury rising for the fragile family inside. "This is not the time. Walk away or you'll regret crossing my path." The air crackled with suspense as the men sized him up, hands twitching near their sides. Words grew heated, a brief shove against a parked car, but Dom's commanding presence and veiled warning, backed by the unmistakable weight of his reputation, forced them to retreat into the alleys. No weapons drawn, yet the encounter left his pulse racing and his remorse deeper. "Every shadow I cast endangers them now." He returned inside to find Lily humming fragments of "You Are My Sunshine," while carefully placing a cool cloth on her mother's forehead, just as Grace had once taught her. The quiet, emotional stillness in the room moved Dom profoundly. This child, malnourished and sleep-deprived, was caring for her mother with a resilience that shamed his own hardened heart. Grace woke slowly, her body aching, voice timid as she addressed him. "Mr. Dom, is it? Why are you still here? People like you don't stay in places like this." Fear and anxiety flickered in her eyes, mixed with deep disorientation. She tried to sit up, only to feel a wave of dizziness and pain that forced her back down. The absurdity of her situation tore at her, once a hopeful young woman now reduced to this pitiful state, dependent on the kindness of a stranger, whose wealth made her poverty feel even more humiliating. "I'm here because your daughter sang to me when I needed it most." Dom replied, his voice steady yet laced with inner torment. "She reminded me of the family I failed to protect. Let me handle things for a while. You need rest." Days blurred into one another. Over the following week, Dom arranged for groceries to be delivered discreetly, fresh milk, fruits, warm blankets, and nourishing meals that Grace and Lily had not seen in months. He stayed through long evenings, listening as Lily shared stories of unfair evictions, landlords who laughed at their pleas, and nights when the wind howled so loudly they huddled together for warmth. Each tale deepened his gnawing remorse, the violent inner conflict threatening to overwhelm him. He who commanded loyalty through power and fear now felt an overwhelming protective attachment to this child, the kind of fierce love a father feels for his daughter, burning intensely from the moment she had sung to him. One evening, as rain lashed the windows, another unjust blow struck. A landlord's notice slid under the door, another threat of eviction if rent remained unpaid. Grace read it with trembling hands, tears streaming silently. "How are we supposed to survive this?" she whispered, voice breaking. Lily comforted her mother with small arms, but her own shoulders shook with silent sobs. Dom watched from the corner, his heart shattering. In that condensed moment of stillness, he made a silent vow. "No more. I will shield them from this cruelty." Later that night, while the apartment grew quiet, Lily climbed into the armchair beside him, clutching one of her Wrigley Field drawings. "Mr. Dom, you look sad again. Want me to sing?" He nodded, unable to speak. Her small voice filled the room once more, and for the first time in years, Dominic Rossi felt the crushing weight of his empire lift slightly. The child's innocent kindness was healing wounds he had long thought fatal. Grace observed them from the couch-guarded curiosity, slowly giving way to tentative trust. The powerful man who had entered their world of extreme poverty now sat protecting her daughter with quiet strength. Confusion still lingered, but so did a profound sense of being seen. As another week passed, Dom's presence became a quiet constant. Street confrontations continued in the shadows outside. Rival messages delivered through tense words and posturing, but he handled each with calculated calm, ensuring none reached the apartment door. Inside, the disparity between his wealth and their misery only grew clearer. His phone calls moved resources effortlessly, while Grace and Lily's lives had been defined by powerless endurance. Through it all, Lily's pure heart worked its miracle. She drew pictures for Mr. Dom, shared her last jelly cup with him, and reminded him daily that sadness could fade with a song. Dom's inner turmoil intensified into something transformative: remorse, evolving into fierce responsibility, and deep paternal love for the vulnerable child who had rescued him first. The broken world outside still loomed, but within these walls a small light of compassion and healing had begun to glow. Later that night, the small south side apartment grew heavier with silence, broken only by Grace's labored breathing. The fever had returned stronger, turning her thin body into a battlefield of chills and sweat. She lay on the worn couch, her once vibrant face now gaunt and pale, dark circles etched deep from endless sleepless nights and the crushing weight of poverty. Malnourished and powerless, she had endured too many cold, wind-filled evenings huddled with Lily under a single thin blanket, while eviction notices piled up like accusations. Another absurdly unfair blow had arrived earlier that evening. A final warning from the landlord demanding 3 months of back rent or immediate removal of their few belongings. The paper trembled in Grace's weak hands before she set it aside, too exhausted to cry. Dominic Rossi watched from the shadows of the corner, his powerful frame rigid with barely contained torment. The wealthy Mafia boss who commanded respect across Chicago's construction empire and darker alleys alike felt his heart tearing violently apart. This child sang my song, those eyes, that voice. The paternal pull had ignited the moment Lily offered her innocent comfort on the subway, and now it burned like wildfire. He loved her with the fierce, protective depth of a father who had failed once and refused to fail again. Next morning, while Grace slept fitfully and Lily drew quietly at the rickety table, Dom stepped outside under the pretense of making calls. The bitter Chicago wind whipped around him as he arranged for a discreet lab technician to visit. Using a few strands of Lily's chestnut hair from her brush and a sample of his own, he requested the test. No one questioned the dawn. Money and influence made the impossible routine. Hours later, as pale afternoon light filtered through the cracked window, the technician returned with sealed results. Dom opened the envelope alone in the hallway, his hands steady from years of control, yet his soul in chaos. The words hit him like a freight train, paternity confirmed. Lily was his biological daughter. The world tilted. Dominic Rossi, the man who had built towers of concrete and shadows, dropped to one knee in the dim corridor. Violent inner conflict exploded within him, gnawing remorse from 7 years of believing he had lost his family forever, now mixed with overwhelming joy and gut-wrenching guilt. She is mine. My little girl has been living in this hell while I sat atop an empire. Tears burned his eyes as memories flooded back, humming "You Are My Sunshine" to his pregnant wife's belly. The arguments that drove Grace away, the life he had chosen that poisoned everything good. The remorse consumed him sharper than any street confrontation he had ever faced. Inside, Lily noticed his absence and came to the door, her small voice soft and timid. "Mr. Dom, are you okay? Mama's asking for water." He composed himself with iron will and stepped back in, kneeling to her level. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'll get it for her." His voice cracked with the intensity of paternal love that had surged from their first meeting and now threatened to overwhelm every defense he had built. Later that afternoon, another cruel twist of fate struck. A city inspector arrived unannounced, citing code violations on the crumbling building and ordering immediate repairs the landlord refused to fund. Grace tried to stand and explain their situation, but dizziness swept over her. She clutched the wall numb and disoriented her malnourished body, trembling with horror and anxiety. "Please, we have nowhere else," she whispered in her polite, fearful tone. The inspector, unmoved by their visible poverty, simply left another notice. Lily hugged her mother tightly, both of them enduring yet another humiliating blow that stripped bare their helplessness. Dom handled the matter with quiet power, making calls that ensured the immediate pressure eased, but the disparity tore at him. His wealth, private doctors delivered groceries, influence that moved city officials, stood in brutal contrast to their threadbare existence. He watched Lily carefully portion out the last of the fresh fruit he had brought, saving the best piece for her mother, and his heart shattered again. As evening fell, tension from the outside world intruded once more. Dom stepped out to arrange further medical supplies when 3 men from Victor Kane's rival faction appeared unexpectedly at the end of the block. The confrontation crackled in the gathering dusk. Rossi, the lead man, called boldly, stepping forward with a sneer. "Word is you're spending time down here in the dirt. Kane says this territory is shifting. You keep playing house and you might lose more than money." Dom's posture shifted, protective fury rising like a storm. He positioned himself to block any view of the apartment door. "This street is off limits. Deliver your message and disappear." Words escalated, voices low and threatening, with a tense shove against a rusted fence. Suspense thickened the air as the men tested his resolve, but Dom's commanding presence and veiled warning, delivered with the unmistakable weight of his reputation, forced them to back down into the shadows. No blows landed, yet the encounter left adrenaline surging through his veins and fresh dread in his chest. Returning inside, he found Grace awake and watching him with guarded curiosity mixed with deepening confusion. "Mr. Dom, why do those men outside seem afraid of you? Who are you, really?" Her voice remained soft and timid, yet laced with anxiety. She felt a wave of disorientation, her frail body swaying slightly, as she tried to process the powerful stranger who had entered their world of extreme poverty and begun shielding them so completely. Before Dom could answer, Lily climbed into his lap without hesitation, her tiny arms wrapping around his neck. You're my friend, right? You make the scary things go away." In that quiet, condensed moment of emotional stillness, Dom held her close, the fatherly bond, deepening into something sacred and unbreakable. The DNA confirmation burned in his mind. "My daughter, my blood has been suffering while I drowned in power and regret." The inner tearing grew more intense as night deepened. Dom sat vigil while Grace's condition fluctuated. Another unjust blow arrived via a late-night phone call from a bill collector harassing Grace about old medical debts from Lily's previous illnesses, debts accrued because she could never afford proper care. Grace listened with silent tears, her powerless state humiliating and heartbreaking. Lily comforted her with small songs, her resilience, a knife in Dom's already wounded soul. The shocking twist unfolds. Later that night, after Lily had finally fallen asleep, curled beside her mother, Dom received a second, more disturbing report from a trusted contact. Victor Kane, his longtime rival, had not only been circling the South Side. Years ago, Kane had orchestrated Grace's disappearance by sending threats: leave Dominic or watch him die in a staged accident. Kane had fabricated evidence of Dom's infidelity and danger to force her flight while she was pregnant. And now, with whispers of Dom's involvement here, Kane was actively hunting again to eliminate any loose ends. The revelation struck Dom like lightning. He stepped into the freezing hallway, fists, clenched remorse and rage colliding violently inside him. "My own world of shadows nearly killed my child before she was born, and now it threatens her again." The gnawing guilt evolved into a consuming fire. The Mafia boss, who had lost everything, realized the cost had been his own flesh and blood living in destitution. Violent emotional conflict tore through him. The urge for immediate retaliation battled against the overwhelming paternal need to protect Lily at all costs. He returned to the room and watched his daughter sleep, her small chest rising and falling. In the quiet stillness, he whispered words meant only for himself. "I failed you once, little one. Never again. You are my sunshine, and I will burn down every shadow to keep you safe." Grace stirred, catching the tail end of his emotion. Her eyes met his shock, fear, and a flicker of profound curiosity. "Mr. Dom, whatever burden you carry, please don't let it hurt Lily. She's already endured too much." Dom nodded, his voice rough with deep feeling. "I swear on what's left of my soul, she will never suffer like this again." As another week passed, Dom's presence intensified. Deliveries of warm blankets, nourishing food, and medical monitoring arrived like miracles in their impoverished world. Street confrontations with Kane's scouts grew bolder, and more frequent tense exchanges in alleyways, warnings delivered under flickering streetlights. But each time Dom stood firm, his power serving as an invisible shield around the Silever, fragile family. Through it all, Lily's innocent kindness continued healing him. She drew pictures of our family with 3 stick figures and shared her treasured jelly cup, reminding him daily of the light he had forgotten. The first major twist had shattered Dom's world, but in its place bloomed a fierce, protective father's love that would change everything. The crisis had only just begun. Later that night, the Southside apartment settled into an uneasy quiet. Grace's fever had broken once more, thanks to the steady stream of medicine and nourishing meals. Dom arranged, yet her thin frame still spoke of deep exhaustion. She remained desperately malnourished, her cheeks sunken and her movements slow, a living testament to years of powerless endurance. Cold nights, when wind howled through broken windows, skipped meals so Lily could eat, and humiliating visits from bill collectors who treated their poverty like a personal failing. Dominic Rossi sat in the worn armchair, his powerful presence filling the small space. The wealthy Mafia boss, whose construction empire towered over Chicago's skyline and whose influence reached into shadowed corners of the city, felt his heart tearing with increasing violence. Knowing Lily was his biological daughter had unlocked a flood of paternal love that burned intensely from the very first moment she sang to him on the subway. Every glance at her fragile form brought fresh waves of gnawing remorse. "My own blood has suffered this hell while I ruled from marble offices and armored cars." Next morning, Lily slipped outside to play in the cracked concrete courtyard, her thin coat barely warding off the chill. She returned soon after, hand in hand with another small girl, Emma, her 7-year-old best friend from a neighboring building. Emma was equally thin, with wary eyes and bruises faintly visible on her arms from an abusive home life she rarely spoke about. Her clothes were secondhand and frayed, her shoes mismatched. The 2 girls moved with the quiet resilience of children who had already learned the world was often cruel. "Mr. Dom, this is Emma," Lily said in her soft, timid voice. "She's my best friend in the whole world. Can she stay and draw with me?" Emma stared at Dom with open distrust, her small body tense. "Lily, you shouldn't talk to him. Men with fancy coats and bodyguards only bring trouble. My mama says powerful people hurt kids like us." Her warning carried the sharp edge of experience, creating immediate tension in the room. Dom felt the words like a physical blow. Violent inner conflict surged within him. The Mafia boss who commanded fear, now confronted by the innocent suspicion of a child who saw through the surface of his power. He offered a gentle smile. "You're right to be careful, Emma, but I'm here to help Lily and her mama. No harm will come to either of you." Grace watched from the couch, her voice weak yet polite. "Emma, sweetheart, Mr. Dom has been kind. Please stay if you'd like." Confusion and guarded curiosity flickered across Grace's face, mixed with anxiety. She felt numb at times, disoriented by how quickly their world of extreme poverty was shifting under the protection of this wealthy stranger. The disparity humiliated her. His effortless ability to provide warm blankets and hot meals against their months of cold wind and empty cupboards. Later that afternoon, another absurdly unfair blow struck. A social worker arrived unexpectedly after a neighbor's complaint about the building's conditions, questioning Grace's ability to care for Lily amid her illness. The woman's tone was cold, citing regulations that ignored the reality of Grace's 2 low-paying jobs and endless struggles. Grace tried to explain, her voice trembling with horror and fear. "Please. I love my daughter more than anything. We're doing our best." Dizziness swept over her as she stood, forcing her to sit again, pain and numbness clouding her thoughts. Lily and Emma held hands tightly, their small faces pale with worry. The encounter left Grace, in silent tears, her inner torment, violently tearing at her, the once hopeful mother now stripped bare in front of her child and friend. Dom handled the matter discreetly with influential calls, ensuring no immediate removal threats, but the incident deepened his remorse. "This is the world I helped create through my shadows, families crushed while I grew rich." As evening approached, the girls' kindness began its quiet work. Lily and Emma made simple peanut butter sandwiches from the fresh supplies Dom had delivered, and brought one to him on a chipped plate. "We made it for you, Mr. Dom," Lily said proudly. Emma remained guarded, but added softly, "Lily says you're sad sometimes. Songs help." "Want us to sing?" They performed "You Are My Sunshine" together, their small voices blending in innocent harmony. In that condensed moment of emotional stillness, Dom's powerful shoulders trembled. The paternal bond with Lily intensified, and even Emma's distrust cracked slightly as she saw the genuine emotion in his eyes. Later that night, danger intruded without warning. Dom stepped outside to meet a trusted contact when a drive-by ambush unfolded from a passing car rival, scouts from Victor Kane's faction firing warning shots into the air near the building. The confrontation escalated rapidly into a tense street standoff. 3 men emerged from shadows, voices bold and threatening. "Rossi, you're getting soft protecting strays in this neighborhood. Kane wants you to know your time playing hero ends soon." Dom stood firm, shielding the apartment entrance. Harsh words flew, a brief scuffle against parked cars, sending echoes down the block, but no one was seriously harmed. His men arrived moments later, diffusing the situation with sheer presence. Suspense hung thick until the rivals retreated. Yet Dom sustained a grazing wound to his arm in the chaos, painful but not life-threatening. He staggered back inside, blood seeping through his sleeve. Lily and Emma gasped in horror. Instead of fear, the girls sprang into action with fierce determination. "Mr. Dom, you're hurt," Lily cried, her voice soft yet urgent. Emma, despite her distrust, fetched clean rags and the medical kit Dom had provided. Together, the 2 small girls carefully bandaged his arm, their tiny hands gentle and trembling. Emma whispered, "Bad men with guns always hurt people. But you took the hurt for us, didn't you?" Dom sat motionless, overwhelmed. The children's innocent care, Lily humming the Sunshine song while pressing the bandage, Emma holding his large hand with surprising trust, shattered something deep inside him. Violent emotional conflict raged. The Mafia boss, who had spilled blood to maintain power, now wept silently, as 2 malnourished little girls from the depths of poverty healed him both physically and emotionally. "My daughter and her friend are saving me while I failed to protect them for 7 years. The remorse was almost unbearable, yet it transformed into fiercer paternal love and responsibility. Grace watched from the couch, shock and deep disorientation washing over her. She felt a passionate surge of overwhelming trust and attachment toward this man who protected them so completely. "Mr. Dom, you're bleeding for us." Why, her voice was timid and polite, yet filled with profound curiosity and emerging attachment. The mindset of a woman once desperately poor, now suddenly shielded by immense power, left her numb and tearful. Days blurred as another week passed. Dom's wealth displayed itself more intensely: new warm coats for the girls, a space heater that finally chased away the constant cold, and quiet arrangements for Emma's basic needs after learning of her abusive situation. Street confrontations continued in unexpected bursts. Another tense alley encounter with Kane's men delivering threats resolved through commanding words and strategic positioning that kept the family safe. Emma's distrust slowly softened through quiet moments. She drew a picture of Mr. Dom as a giant shield and confided in Lily. Maybe he's different. He doesn't yell or hit, yet tension remained. Emma still warned Lily in whispers when Dom stepped out, creating small, dramatic conflicts that highlighted the harsh realities faced by disadvantaged children. One quiet evening, as rain pattered against the windows, the three sat together. Lily leaned against Dom's side, Emma cautiously on the other. Grace observed with guarded hope. In the stillness, Dom's inner world churned violently, remorse for his past life, clashing with the pure light these children brought. His love for Lily as a father burned brighter than any empire, pushing him to question the violence he had wielded for years. The deepening bond was healing old wounds even as new shadows gathered outside. Lily's innocent kindness, joined by Emma's wary loyalty, continued pulling Dominic Rossi back toward humanity, one small song and bandage at a time. The crisis of trust and danger was far from over, but in these fragile walls, a powerful father's heart had found its reason to fight for something greater than power. Later that night, the Southside apartment felt suspended between fragility and fragile hope. Grace's fever had finally broken for good, leaving her weak but awake, propped against the worn cushions of the couch. Her thin body still bore the marks of extreme poverty, sunken cheeks, prominent bones beneath threadbare clothes, and dark circles from countless sleepless nights enduring cold winds that slipped through every crack. The latest humiliation had arrived only hours earlier. Another collection notice for overdue utilities threatening to cut power in the dead of winter. Grace had read it with trembling hands, her spirit worn down by one unjust blow after another. Dominic Rossi stood near the window, his powerful frame silhouetted against the dim streetlight filtering in. The wealthy Mafia boss felt his heart tearing with ever greater violence. The paternal love for Lily that had ignited on the subway now consumed him like an inferno. Every moment in this impoverished home deepened his gnawing remorse for the 7 lost years and the dangerous world he had built. Next morning, Grace was strong enough to sit up properly for the first time in many days. Lily and Emma played quietly in the corner with new crayons Dom had provided their small voices, a gentle murmur. Grace watched Dominic with guarded eyes, her voice soft and timid when she finally spoke. "Mr. Dom, you have done more for us than anyone ever has. But I need to know the truth. Who are you? Why are you really here?" Dom turned slowly, his broad shoulders tense. The moment had come. He knelt beside the couch so as not to tower over her, keeping respectful distance. "Grace, there is something I must tell you. Something that changed everything the moment your daughter sang to me on that train." Lily looked up curiously while Emma narrowed her eyes with lingering distrust. Dom's voice grew rough with emotion. 7 years ago I lost my wife and our unborn child. Or at least, I believed I had. The life I chose drove her away. But Lily, she is my daughter, my blood. The DNA test confirmed it beyond doubt. The words landed like thunder in the tiny room. Grace's face drained of color. Shock, horror, and deep disorientation washed over her. She clutched the blanket, dizziness making the room spin as numbness spread through her limbs. "Your daughter? No, that can't be. I left to protect her from your world. The threats, the danger." Her voice cracked, timid, yet filled with violent inner turmoil. The mindset of a woman who had endured desperate poverty. Suddenly, learning the powerful man shielding them was the father of her child, tore at her soul. Confusion, fear, and a passionate surge of overwhelming attachment mixed with betrayal and hope. Lily's eyes widened. "Mr. Dom, you're my daddy." The innocent question carried pure wonder, cutting straight through Dom's defenses. He nodded, tears glistening in his eyes. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm your daddy. I didn't know. I failed you both for so long." The remorse inside him reached a crescendo, violent conflict, raging between the Mafia boss who had commanded empires of shadow and the father desperate to atone. He wanted nothing more than to protect this child with every ounce of his power and wealth. Grace struggled to process the revelation, her frail body trembling. Another absurdly unfair blow struck in that very moment, a loud knock at the door. The landlord appeared with 2 officials demanding immediate payment or eviction by the end of the week. "You people always have excuses," he sneered, ignoring Grace's visible illness and the children's frightened faces. The humiliation was crushing. Grace tried to stand and plead, only to feel a wave of pain and numbness that forced her back down. "Please, we have nowhere else," she whispered, voice polite, even in desperation. Dom rose with quiet authority. "This matter is settled. The rent is paid in full, and repairs will begin tomorrow." A single phone call from his powerful network made it so. The landlord's expression shifted from contempt to fear as he recognized the weight behind Dom's words. The disparity stood in stark relief, Dom's effortless wealth erasing months of torment in moments. Later that afternoon, Grace and Dom spoke alone while Lily and Emma drew pictures outside the door under careful watch. "I was terrified when I left," Grace confessed, her voice soft and trembling. "The threats against you? Against us? I thought I was protecting Lily by disappearing, but seeing you here helping us like this, it confuses everything." Anxiety and guarded curiosity warred within her, yet overwhelming trust had begun to bloom. The mindset of someone lifted from absolute poverty by a powerful protector left her emotionally raw, numb one moment, tearful with fragile hope the next. Dom's inner torment deepened. "I understand why you ran. My world nearly destroyed us before Lily was born. But I swear to you, Grace, I will prove I have changed. For her, supervised visits only until you trust me. I will earn the right to be her father." Grace studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Tentative trust. "For Lily's sake. But if your shadows touch her, I will disappear again, no matter how much you can provide." Emma remained wary, pulling Lily aside during a quiet moment. "He says he's your dad, but powerful men lie. What if he hurts you like my uncle hurts me?" Her words created fresh tension, highlighting the deep scars carried by disadvantaged children. Yet even Emma watched with growing curiosity as Dom gently helped Lily with her drawing, treating her with profound tenderness. Days passed into another week. Dom's wealth continued to transform their immediate reality, warm winter coats, a reliable heater that finally silenced the howling drafts, fresh, nourishing food that brought color back to Lily's and Grace's cheeks. Yet the contrast only made past humiliations sting sharper. One evening, an unexpected utility worker arrived, claiming a mistake and attempting to shut off power again despite payment. The absurdity of the harassment left Grace in quiet tears, her inner world violently torn between gratitude for Dom's protection and the lingering shame of years of powerlessness. Street confrontations escalated in unexpected bursts. Later that night, as Dom stepped out to arrange further support, two of Victor Kane's men waited in the alley. The tension crackled under flickering streetlights. "Rossi Kane knows you're playing family man down here," one sneered boldly. "This ends one way or another." Dom's protective fury surged. "This family is untouchable. Deliver that message." Harsh words were exchanged, a tense standoff with shoving against brick walls, but Dom's commanding presence and arriving backup forced the rivals to retreat without further incident. The suspense left his heart pounding, reinforcing his resolve to shield Lily at any cost. Returning inside, he found Lily waiting. In a quiet, condensed moment of emotional stillness, she climbed into his lap and hugged him tightly. "Daddy, I knew you were special the first time I sang to you." The word daddy pierced Dom's soul, intensifying the paternal bond until it felt almost sacred. Violent remorse for lost years clashed with overwhelming joy, healing him in ways his empire never could. Grace observed from across the room, her expression softening further. The overwhelming trust and attachment grew stronger, passionate in its protective intensity for her daughter. Though confusion and fear still lingered, the powerful man who had entered their world of destitution now stood as a shield, earning tentative steps toward belief. Emma, though still distrustful, began drawing pictures that included the big shield man, a small crack in her armor, revealing deeper truths about the longing of vulnerable children for safety. As another week unfolded, Dom balanced his empire with constant vigilance. More unjust situations arose, a delayed school registration for Lily due to paperwork errors that would have kept her out of classes, resolved instantly by Dom's influence, each one exposing the depth of Grace's former misery, evoking fresh sympathy. Through quiet evenings filled with drawings, songs, and gentle stories, the revelation settled into tentative trust. Dom's inner world churned with ever deeper layers of remorse and responsibility, while Lily's innocent kindness continued mending the broken places inside the powerful Mafia boss. The path ahead remained shadowed by danger, but in this small apartment, a father had begun to reclaim his daughter, and a family fractured by years of hardship took its first trembling steps toward healing. Later that night, the South Side apartment glowed with a warmth it had never known. The new space heater hummed softly, chasing away the constant drafts that had once made every evening a battle against the cold. Grace sat on the couch, still thin and recovering, but color had returned to her cheeks. Lily and Emma played nearby with fresh art supplies, their laughter a fragile melody in the small space. The extreme poverty that had defined their lives, thin blankets, empty cupboards, humiliating nights of hunger and wind, now felt slightly more distant thanks to Dominic Rossi's quiet interventions. Dominic Rossi watched them from the armchair, his powerful frame relaxed, yet his heart in turmoil. The wealthy mafia boss whose construction empire commanded Chicago's skyline felt the paternal love for Lily burning even brighter. Every smile from his daughter intensified the gnawing remorse for the lost years. She calls me daddy now, my little girl who endured so much alone. The violent inner conflict raged joy clashing with deep guilt over the shadows that still threatened them. Next morning, Dom arrived with several large bags. "Today is for new beginnings," he said gently. Lily's eyes lit up as he pulled out 2 beautiful American Girl dolls complete with outfits and accessories. "One for you, sweetheart, and one for Emma. Every girl deserves something special." Lily hugged the doll tightly, tears sparkling. "Thank you, Daddy. I never had a doll like this. Mama and I used to look at them in store windows, but we could never afford one." Her soft, timid voice carried pure delight. Emma hesitated, her distrust still lingering, but accepted the gift with wide eyes. "This is really for me," she whispered, a small crack forming in her armor. Grace observed with guarded curiosity, her voice polite and soft. "Mr. Dom, you don't have to do all this." Inside, she felt overwhelming trust and attachment growing, mixed with the disorientation of moving from desperate poverty to sudden protection. The disparity left her numb at times, once powerless against bill collectors and landlords, now shielded by a man whose wealth erased years of suffering in moments. Later that afternoon, Dom took them on their first family outing. The drive to Wrigley Field felt like a dream. Lily pressed her face against the car window, marveling at the bustling streets. At the ballpark, the smell of hot dogs and fresh popcorn filled the air. Dom bought deep dish pizza slices, Chicago-style hot dogs and souvenirs, tiny Cubs hats for both girls. They cheered from the stands as the home team played, Lily's small voice shouting encouragement beside her father. "Daddy, this is the best day ever," she exclaimed during the 7th-inning stretch, leaning into his side. In that condensed moment of emotional stillness, Dom's heart swelled with fierce paternal love. The remorse tore at him more intensely. "I should have given her this life from the beginning." Emma, sitting on his other side, slowly softened. "This doesn't feel real," she admitted quietly. "No one ever took me anywhere nice." Her words revealed the deep scars of her own disadvantaged life, evoking quiet sympathy. As the game ended in victory, fireworks lit up the night sky over the stadium. Lily and Emma danced in place, faces glowing with wonder. Grace watched them with tears in her eyes, her inner world, a storm of gratitude and lingering fear. "They've never seen anything like this," she whispered to Dom. "Thank you for giving them joy." Days later, they gathered for a backyard barbecue at a quiet, secure property Dom arranged on the city's edge, far from the dangers of the South Side. The girls ran through the grass, playing tag and blowing bubbles. Dom grilled burgers and corn on the cob, simple American fare that felt like a feast to Lily and Emma. Grace helped set the table, her movements stronger now, though the memory of cold, hungry nights still haunted her. Another unjust situation intruded unexpectedly when a delivery driver arrived with the wrong order, followed by a heated argument over a supposed mix-up that seemed designed to frustrate. Grace tried to handle it calmly, but the absurdity of continued small cruelties after years of hardship left her dizzy with frustration and inner torment. "Why does everything have to be so difficult?" she murmured, voice trembling. Dom resolved it instantly with a single call, his wealth smoothing the path effortlessly once more. Later that night, back at the apartment, another tense street confrontation unfolded as Dom stepped outside. 2 of Victor Kane's men appeared under the streetlights, bold and threatening. "Rossi, you think fancy outings will protect them? Kane is watching." Dom stood firm, voice low and commanding. "This family is off limits. Walk away." The air crackled with suspense during the heated exchange and brief standoff near parked cars, but his powerful presence and timely arrival of trusted associates forced the rivals to retreat. No violence erupted, yet the encounter left fresh dread in Dom's chest, intensifying his protective resolve. Returning inside, he found Lily waiting with a new drawing, 4 figures holding hands under a bright sun. "This is us, Daddy. You, me, Mama, and Emma." The innocent artwork pierced his soul. In the quiet, emotional stillness that followed, Lily climbed into his lap and hugged him fiercely. "I love you, Daddy." Dom held her close, tears. He rarely allowed himself slipping free. The paternal bond deepened to an almost overwhelming intensity. Violent inner conflict raged within him. The mafia boss, haunted by his dark empire, now found redemption in his daughter's arms. "She heals me with every word, every song." Emma watched from across the room, her distrust further melting. Later, she confided softly to Lily, "Maybe he really is different. He makes you smile, like in the movies." The moment highlighted the longing of vulnerable children for safety and kindness. Weeks later, the joyful integration continued. Dom secretly arranged therapy sessions for Emma and ensured both girls had everything they needed for school, backpacks, supplies, new clothes. Grace accepted the help with deepening trust, though moments of shock still hit her when deliveries arrived or problems vanished with a word from Dom. "Sometimes I feel dizzy with how fast everything is changing," she admitted one evening, her voice soft and polite. "From having nothing to this. It's confusing but beautiful." One golden afternoon they returned to the backyard for more simple pleasures, blowing bubbles, playing catch, and watching the girls chase fireflies as dusk fell. Lily and Emma's laughter filled the air, their malnourished frames now filling out with regular meals and care. The stark contrast with their former life, endless cold nights, humiliating poverty, made every joyful moment more poignant. In a quiet, condensed stillness by the grill, Dom sat with Grace while the girls played. "I will spend every day earning this trust," he said, voice thick with remorse and determination. "For Lily, for both of them." Grace nodded, her overwhelming attachment clear in her eyes, passionate gratitude for the man who had rescued them from despair. Yet shadows lingered. Another unexpected confrontation occurred later that night near the property, as Dom prepared to leave rival scouts delivering another veiled threat. Tense words were exchanged under the stars' suspense building until they backed down, but the incidents reminded everyone that joy remained fragile. Through it all, Lily's innocent kindness remained the light. She sang "You Are My Sunshine" during quiet evenings, her small voice healing Dom's deepest wounds. Emma slowly became part of the family, her wariness replaced by tentative smiles and drawings that included everyone. The joyful moments wove a tapestry of healing. Dominic Rossi, once lost in power and regret, found his purpose in fatherhood. The bond with his daughter grew stronger with every shared laugh, every protective act, every quiet "I love you, Daddy." The family was integrating heart by healing heart, even as greater storms gathered on the horizon. Later that night, the warmth of recent joyful days lingered in the South Side apartment like a fragile dream. The new heater hummed steadily, and the girls' laughter from earlier still echoed softly. Grace sat folding clean clothes Dom had provided her body stronger, yet still bearing the quiet scars of years of extreme poverty, thin arms, hollow cheeks, and a weariness that spoke of endless cold nights and powerless endurance. The contrast with Dom's growing presence made every past humiliation sharper. Landlords laughing at their please bill collectors, banging on the door at midnight, and the constant wind that sliced through broken windows like knives. Dominic Rossi stood by the window, his powerful frame tense beneath his tailored coat. The wealthy Mafia boss felt his heart tearing with renewed violence. The paternal love for Lily burned fiercer than ever, yet gnawing remorse consumed him. "I brought danger to their door. My shadows followed me here." Every protective act deepened the inner conflict. The father who had finally found his daughter now feared losing her to the very world he had helped create. Next morning, the girls played outside with their American Girl dolls, while Grace prepared a simple breakfast. Suddenly, the scent of smoke cut through the air. Before anyone could react, flames erupted from the building's lower level, an arson attack orchestrated by Victor Kane's men. Shouts filled the hallway as neighbors fled. Grace grabbed Lily and Emma, her voice trembling with horror. "Out. We have to get out now." Thick black smoke poured through the cracks. Lily and Emma coughed violently as they stumbled down the stairs, their small bodies overwhelmed by the acrid air. Grace tried to shield them, but dizziness swept over her from the exertion and lingering weakness. They collapsed outside just as firefighters arrived. Both girls suffered smoke inhalation, their frail frames already malnourished from years of hardship, struggling to breathe. Dom received the call while in a meeting across town. His world stopped. He raced to the scene, heart pounding with violent turmoil. "My daughter. My little sunshine." The sight of Lily and Emma on stretchers tore through him like nothing before. He rode with them in the ambulance, holding Lily's small hand, remorse crashing over him in waves. "This is my fault. My empire invited this fire." At the hospital, doctors worked quickly. Lily and Emma were placed in a shared room for observation, oxygen masks covering their young faces. Grace sat between them, her voice soft and timid as she comforted the girls. "Breathe slowly, sweethearts. Mama is right here." Inside, she felt overwhelming fear mixed with deepening trust in Dom, who had arrived moments later. The mindset of a woman lifted from desperate poverty, now facing new terror, left her numb and disoriented, yet his steady presence anchored her. Dom paced the hallway during the long hours of waiting, his powerful shoulders hunched under the weight of guilt. Another unjust blow came when a hospital administrator questioned their insurance status, treating Grace with suspicion due to her past records of unpaid bills from Lily's earlier illnesses. "We see cases like this often," the administrator said coldly. Grace's cheeks burned with humiliation, her frail body trembling as old powerlessness resurfaced. "Please. They're just children." she whispered, voice polite even in pain. Dom resolved it instantly with quiet authority and resources, but the incident deepened everyone's emotional wounds. Later that afternoon, the girls stabilized but remained weak. Lily stirred first, removing her mask briefly to look at Dom sitting vigil beside her bed. "Daddy, you came. The smoke was scary, but you're here now." Her small voice, still hoarse, carried innocent forgiveness. Emma beside her nodded weakly. "You protected the door before. Like a shield." Despite her earlier distrust, the girl's bravery in the face of danger moved Dom profoundly. In the quiet, condensed stillness of the hospital room with monitors beeping softly, Lily reached for Dom's large hand. "Bad things happen, Daddy. But good people stay. Like you." Those simple words shattered the Mafia boss. Violent inner conflict raged within him, remorse for years of violence, and the danger he had brought clashing with the healing light of his daughter's kindness. Tears slipped down his face as he knelt beside the bed, holding both girls' hands. "They are saving me. These children from the depths of poverty are healing the wounds I thought would never close." Grace watched with profound emotion, her own inner world violently torn. The man who had rescued them from destitution now sat broken before their beds. "You did not cause this fire," she said softly, her voice timid yet filled with kindness that stood in stark contrast to Victor Kane's cruelty. "Your love brought us safety before the flames. That matters more than the shadows chasing you." Her overwhelming trust and attachment burned intensely, reflecting the shock of a once powerless woman now protected and cherished. As evening fell, another wave of danger surfaced. Dom stepped into the hospital corridor to make calls when two of Kane's men appeared near the entrance, bold and threatening under the fluorescent lights. "Rossi, this is only the beginning. Kane says your little family project ends tonight." The confrontation crackled with suspense in the sterile hallway. Harsh words were exchanged in low-heated tones. Dom positioned himself to block any path toward the room, his commanding presence radiating quiet power. "You will not touch them. Ever." A tense standoff followed with security alerted, and Dom's own men arriving swiftly. The rivals backed down under the weight of his reputation, retreating into the night without further incident, but the encounter left fresh adrenaline and dread coursing through Dom. Returning to the room, Dom found Lily and Emma awake again. In another quiet moment of emotional stillness, Emma whispered, "I was wrong about you at first. You're not like the bad men. You stay even when it's scary." Her words marked a turning point, revealing the deep longing of a vulnerable child for consistent kindness. Lily added her own song, weak but heartfelt. "You are my sunshine." The melody wrapped around Dom's shattered heart, easing the gnawing remorse and trauma from years of his violent world. Days blurred as the girls recovered. Dom maintained constant vigil, his wealth displayed more intensely through private monitoring, comfortable blankets, and nourishing meals delivered to the room. Grace's kindness shone through every interaction. She comforted other worried parents in the waiting area, sharing gentle words despite her own exhaustion. This pure compassion stood in powerful contrast to Kane's ruthless escalation, highlighting the healing power of humanity. One evening, another absurdly unfair situation arose when a billing error threatened to delay the girls' discharge. Grace tried to explain their changed circumstances, but old records of poverty resurfaced, leaving her dizzy with anxiety and inner torment. "Why must the past keep punishing us?" she murmured, voice breaking. Dom erased the issue with a single decisive call, yet each reminder of Grace's former misery tore at him violently. Weeks later, as the girls grew stronger, Dom sat with them during a quiet afternoon. Lily leaned against his chest. "Daddy, the fire hurt, but your hugs make it better." Emma nodded beside her, fully trusting now. The paternal bond deepened to its most intense level yet. Dom's remorse evolved into fierce determination. He vowed silently to dismantle the dangers threatening his family, even if it cost him everything. Grace approached, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You are healing too, Mr. Dom. We all are." Her words carried passionate gratitude and attachment born from the journey from absolute powerlessness to protected warmth. The rising danger had tested them severely, but in the hospital's quiet rooms and through the girls' innocent bravery, Dominic Rossi found emotional healing he had long believed impossible. Lily and Emma's pure hearts mended the Mafia boss's deepest wounds, even as shadows from his past loomed larger on the horizon. The family's bond had grown unbreakable through fire and fear, lighting a path forward through the darkness. Later that night, the hospital room had grown quiet once more. Soft, beeping monitors kept rhythm with the girls' steady breathing. Grace sat in the chair between the two beds, her thin frame still showing the lingering effects of long years of extreme poverty, sunken cheeks, fragile wrists and eyes that carried the memory of too many cold, wind-filled nights huddled, with Lily under threadbare blankets. The arson had stripped away even the little they had rebuilt, leaving them once again at the mercy of a cruel world. Dominic Rossi stood at the window overlooking the city lights, his powerful shoulders rigid. The wealthy Mafia boss felt his heart tearing with unbearable intensity. The paternal love for Lily that had bloomed so fiercely now warred violently with the guilt of bringing danger into her life. Every shadow I cast hurts her. My empire is poison. The remorse gnawed deeper than ever, a consuming fire that left him breathless. Next morning, the girls were well enough to be discharged. Dom arranged for them to stay at a secure, comfortable safe house on the city's quieter edge, a spacious home with warm beds, a full kitchen, and a small backyard that felt like paradise compared to the South Side apartment. Lily and Emma explored every corner with wide-eyed wonder, their malnourished bodies finally filling out with regular meals and safety. Emma, still processing the fire and hospital stay, wandered into the study while the adults spoke. Curiosity led her to an unlocked drawer containing old documents and photos Dom had brought from his office. Among faded papers, she found something that made her small hands tremble: hidden records, photographs, and letters, proving Victor Kane was not merely a rival. Kane was Dominic Rossi's half-brother, a man who had betrayed Dom years earlier by faking evidence of threats and infidelity to force Grace to flee while pregnant. Kane had wanted Dom isolated and vulnerable so he could seize power. Emma's eyes widened in shock. The powerful man who had protected them carried this devastating blood betrayal at the heart of his pain. Emma clutched the papers and ran to Lily. "Lily, you have to see this. Mr. Dom's biggest enemy is his own brother. He's the one who made your mama run away." Later that afternoon, the revelation reached Dom in the living room. Emma, with trembling but determined hands, placed the documents on the table. "I found these. I wasn't snooping. I just wanted to understand why bad men keep coming." Her voice was quiet, the former distrust now replaced by fierce loyalty born from weeks of kindness. Dom read the papers. The world seemed to collapse around him. Victor Kane, his own half-brother, had orchestrated everything: the threats that drove Grace away, the years of separation, the recent attacks. The man he had fought for control of Chicago's underworld was blood. Dom dropped into a chair, his powerful frame shaking with violent inner conflict. Remorse, rage, and crushing betrayal tore through him like a storm. "My own brother tried to kill my child before she was born. I built an empire beside the monster who destroyed my family." The gnawing guilt he had carried for 7 years exploded into something far darker. A numbing psychological shock that left him dizzy, his vision blurring as years of buried pain surfaced. Grace watched in horror, her soft voice breaking the silence. "Dominic." Is this true? Confusion and deep disorientation washed over her. She felt a wave of numbness and pain. The mindset of a woman once desperately poor, now learning the full extent of the betrayal that had condemned her and her daughter to years of humiliating poverty. All those cold nights, the hunger, it was because of family. Tears streamed down her face as inner torment violently ripped through her. Lily climbed into Dom's lap without hesitation, her small arms wrapping around his neck. "Daddy, it's okay. Emma says family isn't just blood, it's who chooses to stay." Emma stood beside her, nodding bravely. "You chose us. You stayed when it was scary. That makes you our real family." In that quiet, condensed moment of emotional stillness, the two little girls' innocent words became a lifeline. Dom held Lily tightly, his broad shoulders trembling as silent sobs escaped him. The paternal bond surged with overwhelming intensity, fierce love for his daughter and her loyal friend clashing against the urge for brutal revenge. "I want to destroy him, but if I do, I become the monster who hurt them." The violent inner conflict nearly broke him. Yet Lily's warmth and Emma's plea pulled him back from the edge. Later that night, danger struck again without warning. As Dom stepped outside the safe house to clear his head, 3 of Kane's men emerged from the shadows near the gate, bolder than ever. "Rossi, your brother, sends his regards. He says blood is thicker than whatever soft life you're playing at." The street confrontation crackled with raw tension under the moonlight. Harsh words flew back and forth. Dom's voice was steel as he positioned himself to shield the house. "You tell my so-called brother that if he comes near my daughter again, blood will mean nothing to me." A tense standoff followed, shoving against the iron gate, voices rising in the cold night air, but Dom's commanding presence and the arrival of his trusted men forced the rivals to retreat into the darkness. Suspense hung thick until they vanished. Yet the encounter left Dom's remorse deeper than ever. "Even my own blood wants to destroy what I love most." Returning inside, he found Grace waiting with the girls. Another absurdly unfair blow arrived in the form of a late-night message from a city office, questioning Lily's school enrollment due to old records of Grace's poverty and instability. The reminder of their former misery hit Grace like a physical blow. She clutched the table dizzy and disoriented. "Why won't the past let us go?" she whispered in her timid, polite voice, inner torment escalating into something almost unbearable. The disparity with Dom's wealth, how one call from him could fix everything, only made the humiliation sharper. Dom resolved the issue instantly, but the emotional weight crushed him further. In the stillness that followed, Lily and Emma curled up on either side of him on the couch. "Daddy, please don't go after the bad man alone," Lily pleaded softly. "We need you here. You make us feel safe." Emma added, her voice steady with new trust. "Family chooses love. You already chose us." The shocking twist had nearly destroyed Dominic Rossi. Learning his half-brother's betrayal reopened every wound, intensifying the violent conflict between the Mafia boss who craved vengeance and the father who craved redemption. Yet, in the innocent pleas of the two vulnerable children, the very ones who had healed him with songs, bandages, and unwavering kindness, he found his path. Grace approached, her eyes filled with profound compassion. "You do not have to carry this alone anymore. We are here." Her overwhelming trust and attachment, born from the journey out of absolute poverty, burned quietly but fiercely. As another week passed, the revelation continued to echo. Dom spent long hours in quiet reflection, his wealth displayed through constant protection and care for the girls, yet his heart remained in turmoil. Street confrontations with Kane's faction grew more frequent, and bold, tense exchanges in nearby alleys resolved through commanding presence, rather than force, each one reinforcing his growing resolve to choose a different way. In the quiet evenings, Lily's singing and Emma's drawings became anchors. The two children, once symbols of the disadvantaged world Dom had overlooked now, stood as his moral compass. Their pure hearts had not only survived the fire and betrayal, they had begun to redeem the powerful man who protected them. The second major twist had shaken the foundations of everything Dominic Rossi believed. But through the innocent love of his daughter and her loyal friend, a new possibility emerged, not revenge but redemption. The path forward remained dark and uncertain, yet for the first time the Mafia boss saw a light worth following. A father's heart once broken by shadows and blood now beat with renewed purpose. Later that night, the safe house on the edge of the city felt heavier under the weight of betrayal. The spacious rooms and warm lights could not chase away the shadows now closing in. Grace moved quietly through the kitchen, still thin from years of malnutrition and sleepless nights. Her body, a living reminder of the humiliating poverty she had endured. Cold winds slicing through cracked windows, empty cupboards, and the constant powerlessness that had nearly broken her spirit. The revelation about Victor Kane had reopened every old wound. Dominic Rossi stood alone in the study, his powerful frame silhouetted against the desk lamp. The wealthy Mafia boss, whose construction empire dominated Chicago, felt his heart tearing apart with ferocious intensity. The knowledge that his own half-brother had orchestrated the destruction of his family ignited a storm of gnawing remorse and blinding rage. "My blood tried to erase my daughter before she drew her first breath." Violent inner conflict consumed him. The father who had found healing in Lily's song now battled the Mafia don who craved vengeance. Next morning, Dom made calls in a voice colder than the Chicago wind. He mobilized trusted men for what he told himself was protection. But deep down the descent had begun. "Find Kane," he ordered quietly. "End this." Remorse warred violently with fury as he pictured Lily's trusting eyes. "I swore I would be better for her. Yet here I am, stepping back into the darkness." Later that afternoon, another absurdly unfair blow struck the family. A city official arrived at the safe house unannounced, citing old records of Grace's poverty and questioning her fitness as a mother despite all the improvements. "These cases require review," the official stated flatly, ignoring the warm home and healthy children before him. Grace's cheeks burned with fresh humiliation. She stood to plead her case, only to feel a wave of dizziness and numbness wash over her. "Please. I have fought so hard for them," she whispered in her soft, timid, polite voice. The mindset of a woman once desperately poor, now suddenly protected, yet still haunted by the past, left her emotionally raw and tearful. Dom resolved the matter with a single commanding call, but the incident fueled his rage further. "Even now the world tries to take them from me." As evening fell, Dom left for a warehouse on the industrial outskirts, a supposed meeting to confront Kane's remaining loyalists. The descent into darkness accelerated. He moved through the dimly lit space with cold purpose, his men positioned around him. But Kane had anticipated this. Tension thickened the air as rival voices echoed from the shadows. "You really thought blood would save you, brother?" Kane's mocking tone carried across the empty floor. The confrontation escalated into a bold, tense standoff. Harsh accusations flew back and forth. Dom's voice remained steel as he stepped forward. "You tried to destroy my family. You will never touch them again." Shoving and posturing against crates created raw suspense, but no shots had been fired yet. Dom's inner world churned violently remorse for becoming the very monster he hated, clashing with the fierce paternal need to eliminate the threat to Lily forever. Meanwhile, back at the safe house, Lily sensed something was wrong. Daddy looked sad again, she told Emma. Like before the song, the two girls, bound by unbreakable loyalty, slipped out a side door despite Grace's exhausted sleep. They took a bus toward the industrial area, guided by a scrap of paper Lily had seen with the warehouse address. Two small 7-year-olds navigating Chicago's streets at night, a heartbreaking image of courage born from love. Later that night, the warehouse showdown reached its peak. Kane's men pressed closer. Words turned heated. A gunshot rang out, a warning shot that shattered a window. Dom stood firm, shielding his remaining loyalists, his heart pounding with violent conflict. This ends tonight. For Lily. Then two small figures appeared at the warehouse entrance. Daddy Lily's voice cut through the tension like a beam of light. Emma stood beside her, eyes wide but determined. The men froze. Kane laughed coldly. Even now you bring strays into this. Lily broke free and ran forward, positioning herself directly between Dom and Kane. Her small body trembled, but her voice rang clear and pure. She began to sing the same song that had started everything. You are my sunshine. My only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. Bullets flew, warning shots from Kane's side meant to intimidate. One grazed dangerously close. Dom lunged forward with desperate speed, throwing himself in front of Lily. A sharp, searing pain exploded in his side as he took the near-fatal shot intended for his daughter. He collapsed to the concrete floor, shielding her tiny frame with his powerful body. The world slowed. Blood spread across his shirt. Lily dropped to her knees beside him, her small hands pressing against the wound. Daddy, no, please stay with me. Emma ran to help, tearing off her jacket to staunch the bleeding. Both girls' innocent kindness in the midst of chaos created a heart-stopping, condensed moment of emotional stillness amid the danger. Dom looked up at Lily, his vision blurring from pain and blood loss. Violent inner torment reached its absolute peak, remorse for descending into darkness, overwhelming paternal love, and the terrifying realization that he might leave her again. She came for me. My little sunshine walked into hell to save me. Tears mixed with blood on his face as he whispered hoarsely, I'm here, sweetheart. Daddy's here. Grace arrived moments later, alerted by a frantic call from one of Dom's men. She rushed in, horror and anxiety washing over her frail form. Seeing Dom bleeding on the ground while Lily and Emma tried desperately to help him brought deep disorientation and numbness. No, not like this, she whispered, voice breaking. The woman who had endured years of humiliating poverty now faced the terror of losing the man who had rescued them all. Yet her kindness shone through as she knelt beside him, helping the girls apply pressure to the wound. Kane's men hesitated the sight of the two small girls and the fallen Don, creating unexpected pause. Dom's loyalists moved in diffusing the immediate threat through commanding presence and tense standoff rather than further bloodshed. Kane slipped away into the shadows, but the damage had been done. In the ambulance racing toward the hospital, Dom drifted in and out of consciousness, Lily's small hand never leaving his. Sing again, baby, he murmured weakly. Lily's voice, trembling but determined, filled the space once more. Emma held his other hand, fully committed now. You stayed for us, now we stay for you. Grace sat beside them, her inner world, violently torn, passionate attachment and trust for the powerful man who had protected them, clashing with fear of losing him. The disparity remained stark. His wealth had brought private medical teams waiting at the hospital, yet it could not shield him from the consequences of his past. Later that night, in the emergency room, as doctors worked urgently to stabilize Dom, the family gathered in the waiting area. Lily curled against Grace, exhausted but resolute. Daddy took the hurt for me, like a real shield. Emma nodded, tears streaming. He chose us over the dark. The descent into darkness had nearly claimed Dominic Rossi. The ultimate test, facing his half-brother's betrayal while protecting his daughter, had pushed him to the brink. Yet in that warehouse, through Lily's brave song and the girl's unwavering loyalty, the powerful Mafia boss had chosen fatherhood over vengeance. His heart, though wounded physically and emotionally, beat with a new clarity. The children he had once rescued had become his saviors, pulling him back from the abyss with nothing more than innocent love and a simple song. The darkness had tested them all, but the light of a father's bond with his daughter burned brighter than ever, even as Dom fought for his life. Later that night, the secret safe house on the outskirts of Chicago hummed with quiet urgency. Private medical equipment filled one of the larger bedrooms, turning it into a makeshift intensive care unit. Dominic Rossi lay pale against crisp white sheets, his powerful body weakened by blood loss from the warehouse gunshot. The wealthy Mafia boss, whose construction empire still commanded respect across the city, hovered between life and death. Machines monitored every shallow breath while his mind drifted in and out of consciousness, tormented by visions of Lily's brave face in the warehouse. Grace sat vigil beside him, her thin frame still showing the deep marks of years of extreme poverty, sunken cheeks, fragile wrists and eyes haunted by countless cold, wind-filled nights of hunger and powerlessness. She held Dom's large hand, her voice soft and timid, as she whispered prayers for the man who had pulled them from destitution. "You cannot leave us now. Not after everything." Next morning, the lead doctor pulled Grace and the girls into the hallway, his expression grave. "Mr. Rossi has stabilized somewhat, but he needs a rare blood transfusion immediately. His type is uncommon, and we've exhausted our supplies. Only a close biological relative is likely to match perfectly in time." Lily's small face crumpled with fear. "I'll give my blood, doctor. Daddy needs it." Emma stood silently beside her, eyes wide with inner conflict. Tests were run quickly using Dom's private lab resources. The results arrived within hours, delivered in a sealed envelope that the doctor opened with careful hands. The room fell into stunned silence as he read the findings aloud. "Lily is not a match, but Emma is. A perfect match." The revelation struck like lightning. Emma, Lily's loyal best friend, carried the exact blood type needed. Further quiet investigation by Dom's trusted aide, reviewing old records pulled during the crisis, uncovered the devastating truth: Emma was Victor Kane's abandoned illegitimate daughter. Kane had fathered her years ago, then ordered her mother's death to eliminate any weakness, leaving the little girl to a life of abuse and poverty on the South Side. The same monster who had betrayed Dom and tried to destroy his family had also cast aside this child. Emma's small body began to shake. He's my father. The bad man who started the fire, who shot Mr. Dom." Horror, anxiety, and deep disorientation crashed over her. She felt dizzy, numb, and unsteady on her feet. The mindset of a vulnerable child who had endured years of humiliating abuse and poverty, now shattered by this blood connection to pure evil. "I hate him. I never want to be like him." Grace dropped into a chair, shock and confusion tearing through her. The woman who had survived absolute destitution, sleeping-deprived nights, thin and malnourished, enduring one unjust blow after another, now faced this new psychological storm. "All this time, you were connected to the man who ruined us." Her inner world spun violently, passionate attachment to the family they had built, clashing with fresh fear and numbness. Lily hugged Emma tightly. "You're not him. You're my sister. You're good." Later that afternoon, as Dom's condition worsened and machines beeped with increasing urgency, Emma made her choice. Despite her deep fear and hatred of the man who had abandoned her, she stepped forward with quiet courage. "I'll do it. I'll give him my blood. He protected us. He stayed when no one else did." The doctor prepared the transfusion in the safe house. Emma lay on a bed beside Dom's, her small arm connected by tubes. As her blood flowed to save the powerful man who had shown her kindness, silent tears slipped down her cheeks. In that condensed moment of emotional stillness, the room held its breath. Lily held Emma's other hand, singing softly, "You are my sunshine." Dom drifted toward awareness, his eyes fluttering open to see the two girls beside him. The paternal bond with Lily surged even stronger as he realized what was happening. Violent inner conflict raged within his weakened body, gnawing remorse for ever descending into darkness, overwhelming gratitude for Emma's sacrifice, and a father's fierce love that burned hotter than any empire. "This child I barely knew is saving my life, while my own brother tried to end it." Tears welled in his eyes as he whispered hoarsely, "Emma, you didn't have to." "I wanted to," she replied in a small but steady voice. "You chose us. Now I choose you." Grace watched the scene, her heart violently torn. The overwhelming trust and attachment she felt toward Dom intensified into something profound and passionate. The woman who had once been desperate and powerless now witnessed true redemption, a child born from evil choosing goodness. It left her dizzy with emotion, numb with the weight of it all, yet filled with hope. Later that night, another tense confrontation unfolded outside the safe house. Two of Kane's remaining scouts appeared near the perimeter, bold and threatening under the moonlight. "Rossi won't last. Kane will finish what he started." Dom's loyal men handled the situation with commanding presence. Harsh words exchanged across the fence, a tense standoff filled with suspense, but no violence erupted. The rivals retreated once more, yet the incident reminded everyone how fragile their safety remained. Inside, Dom's wealth continued to shield them top specialists, round-the-clock care and resources that erased every obstacle. The stark disparity with Grace's former life of humiliating poverty only made the moment more moving. As another week passed, Dom grew stronger, with Emma's blood now flowing in his veins. The shocking twist had shattered them all. Learning that the loyal little girl who had distrusted him at first was blood-related to their greatest enemy created extreme psychological shock. Yet Emma's voluntary sacrifice became the ultimate act of healing. It proved that family was not defined by blood alone but by choice and love. In quiet evenings, Lily curled against Dom's side, her small voice full of determination. "You're my real daddy. Emma is my sister now. We're a family because we choose each other." Emma, recovering from the donation, nodded from the other side of the bed. "I was scared of you at first, but you showed me what a real dad looks like." Dom held both girls close, his powerful frame still weak but his heart stronger than ever. Violent remorse for his past life clashed with overwhelming paternal pride and responsibility. The Mafia boss, who had nearly lost everything to darkness, had been saved physically by Emma's blood, emotionally by Lily's innocent kindness and unwavering faith. Grace approached, her voice soft and filled with deep feeling. "You have given us more than safety. You have given us hope." Her inner turmoil had evolved into passionate, burning attachment, not romance, but profound gratitude and trust for the man who protected her child with his life. The ultimate betrayal and sacrifice had tested every soul in the room. Cain's blood ran in Emma's veins, yet she had chosen light. Dom's own half-brother had tried to destroy him, yet two small girls from the depths of poverty had pulled him back from death. In the stillness of the safe house, as monitors beeped softly and the Chicago wind whispered outside, Dominic Rossi understood the true meaning of fatherhood. Lily's song had started their journey. Emma's sacrifice had sealed it. The children he had rescued had become his greatest saviors. The new shocking twist had nearly broken them. Instead, it forged an unbreakable family bond, stronger than any blood or empire. Dom closed his eyes, holding his daughters close, a single tear slipping down his cheek. For the first time in years, the powerful man felt truly redeemed, not by power but by the innocent love of two little girls who refused to let him fall. Later that night, the safe house glowed with a gentle warmth that no amount of wealth alone could create. Dominic Rossi sat up in bed for the first time since the warehouse, his powerful frame still bandaged but growing stronger with each passing hour. The wealthy Mafia boss, who once commanded an empire built on shadows, now looked at the two small girls curled against his sides with eyes full of profound tenderness. Grace stood nearby, her once thin and malnourished body now healthier. Though the memories of desperate poverty, sleepless nights, cold winds cutting through threadbare clothes, and humiliating powerlessness remained etched in her gentle smile. Next morning, Dom gathered everyone in the sunlit living room. The disparity between his vast resources and the life Grace had endured made every quiet moment more meaningful. He had already begun dismantling the most dangerous parts of his organization, choosing legitimacy over fear. "I will never let darkness touch you again," he said, voice thick with emotion. Violent inner conflict still stirred within him, gnawing remorse for the years lost and the pain his world had caused, but paternal love burned brighter, guiding him toward true change. Later that afternoon, they stepped outside into the backyard. Lily and Emma ran through the grass, their laughter filling the air like healing music. Dom watched them, his heart swelling with overwhelming fatherly devotion. In this peaceful setting, he understood deeply that true knowledge comes not from power, but from the innocent hearts of children who teach us what really matters. Lily climbed into his lap, her small arms wrapping around his neck. "Daddy, are we going to stay together forever?" "Yes, sweetheart," he replied, tears glistening. "You are my daughter. Emma is your sister. I am adopting both of you. This is our family now." The words carried the weight of full redemption. Emma, who had once distrusted him, leaned in close, her sacrifice, having forged an unbreakable bond. The lesson here was clear: compassion can transform even the hardest hearts, showing that love and humanity transcend any background. Weeks later, Dom stood before a judge in a private chamber, legally making Lily and Emma his daughters. Grace watched with quiet joy her journey from absolute destitution to this moment of safety, evoking deep gratitude. The wealth Dom displayed, comfortable homes, quality education, and unwavering protection, stood in stark contrast to the humiliating poverty she had once known. Yet it was his gentle presence that healed her most. In caring for these children, everyone learned that real knowledge grows through acts of daily kindness rather than grand gestures. As another week passed, Dom took the family to the shores of Lake Michigan. The sun rose over the water in a golden glow, painting the scene with hope. Lily and Emma skipped along the sand, collecting smooth stones while singing their favorite song. Dom walked beside Grace, his inner torment finally easing into peaceful resolve. "I once believed power could protect what I loved," he said softly. "But you and the girls taught me the greatest lesson, that compassion and responsibility create lasting change." Grace nodded, her voice soft and filled with attachment. "We came from different worlds, yet love and compassion bridged everything. Wealth and poverty could never separate genuine care. In the quiet, condensed stillness by the water's edge, Dom knelt before Lily, holding her small hands. "You found me when I was lost, baby girl. Your song brought light into my darkness. I will spend every day earning the honor of being your father, protecting you, raising you, and cherishing the education your pure heart has given me." Lily hugged him tightly. "I knew you were my daddy from the first song, and now we're a real family." Emma joined them, completing the circle. The second child's journey from distrust to deep trust added layers of meaning, reminding everyone that true family is built through choice and sacrifice. Another subtle lesson emerged in their shared laughter. No matter one's origins or skin color, open hearts create belonging that no fortune can buy. Through these experiences, the family gained profound knowledge about resilience, forgiveness, and the healing power of innocent love. Later that evening, as they sat together, watching the sunset paint the sky in soft colors, Dom reflected on the full circle. The man who had descended into darkness had risen through the light of fatherhood. Grace's kindness, standing pure against past cruelty, had shown everyone the greatest education of all that humanity prevails when we choose protection and understanding over revenge. Lily's song and Emma's courage had delivered the most important knowledge, even in our lowest moments. A child's trust can redeem the hardest soul. This story carries many beautiful lessons about second chances and the strength found in family bonds. It teaches us the value of education through lived experience and the quiet knowledge that compassion knows no boundaries of wealth or poverty. Love, regardless of skin color or background, remains the strongest force capable of bridging any divide. To everyone watching this video, may you enjoy good health, a joyful life, and daily peace. Thank you for joining this emotional journey with us. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with friends so we can bring many more engaging stories every day. How did this story make you feel? How does it connect to your own real-life experiences? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. The creator truly wants to listen to the emotions from deep within your hearts. Goodbye for now, and we promise to see you again in the next video. Disclaimer: all stories on this channel are fictional and created solely for entertainment purposes. Any resemblance to real people, events, or places is purely coincidental.